Hey, Richest, you money maniacs. Today we're going to be talking about what happens to family when someone dies, especially someone important to the family. All right, so let's get right to it. All right, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be a little bit more of a somber topic, but it's important, especially to me, because I just recently lost my mother. I actually had a bunch of people ask me, how did you handle that? How did you deal with it? And it was a very interesting circumstance too. The first thing I'd like to point out though is, if you've had this kind of experience or you need help with that, I am not a psychologist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm only going to offer information from my own experience in life and my own perspective and what helped me and what I've actually been able to achieve quantifiable results with. And when I say quantifiable, I mean measurable in terms of my blood pressure, in terms of my daily joy, in terms of my finance, in terms of my ability to focus, especially in the middle of a traumatic situation like that. Losing a parent or any loved one can be extremely traumatic, and the only thing that can make it worse is when you bring money into the situation as well. Because anytime you bring money into a situation, even when they're just alive, people get very weird. People who were your best friends or people who were the closest family members suddenly can fly apart in completely different directions and never speak to each other again. In fact, that's exactly what happened in my family, and that was even after we had already had strained relations in all kinds of different ways because of my parents' divorce, because of the relationships between the siblings. It was just very messy. So to have then on top of it my mom die and for monies to suddenly become involved in the situation, it was extremely stressful and extremely uncomfortable for a lot of people. Fortunately though, for me, it was not uncomfortable at all because I was able to create a situation and control the circumstances enough for myself that it was really nice to see everybody. It was unfortunate that I didn't get to visit my mom in person, but I did get to talk to her the morning that she died. I had been on the phone with her just about every day. And the morning that she died, she sounded great. And she was feeling better than ever. Her numbers were wonderful in terms of her blood work. Her doctor told her she was doing great, and she sounded really, really wonderful. In fact, that was the longest conversation I'd had with her for weeks. Simply because she didn't have the energy before. She just couldn't stay on the phone. She was too tired. That last morning, she actually was able to stay on the phone. So I was blessed enough to be able to say goodbye to her literally right before she died. And I've been grateful ever since that moment for that gift. So the thing that I want to talk about today, though, is how when the money side of it came into play and how family members became very, very odd and some even angry or aggressive for whatever reason. So the first thing I want to suggest is that look really carefully at your own circumstance and decide your intention in advance. Make sure that you write down your intentions while you're healthy and while you're of clear mind. And make sure that that's exactly what you want to have happen with whatever you leave behind. See, the interesting thing with my mom is that her legacy, unfortunately, was that of anger and pain and debt and suffering. Once she divorced my father, she never really got over it, and she never moved on with another relationship. She stayed right in the same house, in the same town, and acquired all kinds of knickknacks and just junk. And it was unfortunate because she really became very much a hoarder, and it was a real struggle for her to just kind of let things go. She was a wonderful woman, don't get me wrong. She was a huge inspiration to me in my life, and I love her, and I love everything, all the gifts that she gave me and all of the knowledge that she gave me, and a lot of it was very good. But unfortunately, she couldn't seem to overcome that. And so when she died, what was left behind was all that strain between the different kids and a pile of debt and a lot of bad feelings. In fact, when I finally got the will, I just kind of chuckled. I was not surprised. The mortgage, she had remortgaged the original house that she'd lived in. It should have been paid off, and she'd spent all of that. And then on top of it, she had $19,000 in credit card debt. And in the will, it said that, the three favorite kids were to get an equal split of whatever was left over after selling the house, because that was the only real asset she had. And then, of course, the other two kids, myself and another sibling, were to get $1,000 just because she loved us and she wished us well. And that was perfectly fine with me. In fact, I actually gave the $1,000 back in an effort to help clean up the rest of the estate, because there was so much debt and there's so much work to do to the house, and I'm just not there. I'm 3,000 miles away. So the funny part of it is that in the process of going back for my mother's funeral, I decided to try and rekindle some of the relations with my siblings. And one in particular, my one sister, I always enjoyed talking with her and spending time with her. And I did begin to text back and forth, but then there was a mistake with a phone number for her daughter. Her daughter wanted to come out to Los Angeles to visit, and she somehow got the wrong phone number. And so while she was here, she tried to contact me, but I had no idea that she was trying to contact me because she had the wrong number. So my sister accused me of playing games and trying to scheme to get more money out of my mom's estate. And now, of course, after seeing the letters from the lawyers, it just seems ridiculous to have claimed that, because there's nothing to get out of the estate. It's all debt. And so I think that was what I wanted to share was, I'm living through the example of what happens when money becomes involved. People stop thinking rationally. They stop thinking logically, and they think in the instant that they're in emotionally, and have keyed in emotions from old wounds or old arguments or old things that have been brewing all those years, and finally they get a chance to explode. And the money gives them a really good moral reason to be angry. And so that would be the cautionary tale concerning my own personal experience that I hope that you use in your life as an example of what not to do. So here's the comparison. My mother's will set up my one sister who actually helped her at the end there, and actually helped her a lot through most of her life as well, to make her the executor. And then, of course, to split whatever was left from the sale of the house 3 ways to the other kids, and then to give my other sibling and myself a small little bit as a token of appreciation and love, right? I always knew that she loved me. It wasn't a big deal. So that was the example. And the end result was that she left behind a mountain of debt and a lot of hard feelings. What I would suggest, and what we suggest with the Richest You, is to leave behind a laser fund. And I know you hear me talk about laser funds all the time, but there's a specific reason for it. When you have a laser fund, not only is it compounding interest for you tax-free while you're alive, but when you die, it blossoms into a much, much larger amount and goes to the beneficiary for tax-free. So, for example, the one that I have will blossom from, once it reaches $1 million or whatever the amount is, we'll say $1 million to keep the math simple. It'll blossom 2.5 times bigger at my death, which means that my beneficiary, my wife, will get $2.5 million after I die. And she gets it tax-free. Now, I also have it set up so that the fund allows for my daughter to be able to access money as well as my wife, and that my daughter can access it on the basis of equal opportunity. And what that means is that we're not just giving her the money. So even if my wife and I both die and she inherits the money, she just doesn't get a lump sum. She has a fund that is rolled over into another laser fund, so it continues to grow tax-free, and she can actually borrow against it to start a business or to grow a business or to buy a house or to go on a vacation. But if she borrows against it, she has to supply half of the cost, half of the expense for whatever venture she wants to do from her own money. So if she wants to borrow, or if she wants to start a business for $50,000, she can borrow from the laser fund $25,000, but she has to also supply her own $25,000 to make it possible to get that other $25,000 to hit the $50,000. And she has to pay back that $25,000 loan slowly, eventually, over time, but she does have to pay it back. So now she's got a personal bank. So instead of qualifying for a loan from a bank, she always knows that she can borrow against this laser fund to grow a business, to start a business, to do whatever she wants. In fact, one of the things that we're putting in our laser fund for her is that when she gets married, she can get $5,000 or $10,000 out of the laser fund specifically to help pay for her honeymoon. That money she does not have to do an equal opportunity with it, but it has to go specifically to the use of paying for her honeymoon. Now imagine how much simpler that would be, especially once we have more children. If there are more children and we both pass and the money is left over, now any sibling has access to that fund and the ability to use that fund to do whatever they want to do, to buy a house, to have a child, to start a business, but they have to supply half of what they need as well. So now they're responsible for the initial startup fund, but then they get that other half from the laser fund for sure. Now, remember, they have to pay that back too. The whole point of all of that is to compare those two wills. My mother's will, which basically, even if money were left over, then the siblings would have been taxed on, or a laser fund where my children will have money left for them that is tax-free and is constantly making more tax-free money for them and continues to grow, and they can borrow against it as long as they supply half, or if they're getting married, pay for their honeymoon. And they'll always know that they have that nest egg there, and oh, by the way, it's getting bigger, 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 and bigger. And then when they pass, they can pass it on to their kids as well, and it will continue to grow tax-free as long as they always roll it over into another laser fund. That's the difference. And remember something, like I said from the very beginning, people get weird when money becomes involved. And so you need things like the laser fund with an equal opportunity clause to help people feel like it's a fair, level playing ground for all the siblings or for all the family members. Now, one of the last things I want to mention is how my mom actually got a very small glimpse of what life could have been like. She actually left the mess that she left, but right at the very end, she got a glimpse of how wonderful life could have been if she hadn't clung to anger, if she hadn't clung to the old things and tried to keep the old house and had to stay in the same town, and had actually started trying to grow herself and learn and build a business or find a new skill or find a job or do something or find even a new husband and build a new life for herself. My sister, who became the executor, and I'm so glad that she did because she and her husband gave my mom so much at the end. I can never thank them enough. What they did is they took her out of the old house and out of the old town and put her into this really nice, smaller, simple condo that was very beautiful and easy to take care of and made my mom feel like she was living like a queen. And the only regret she really had from what my sister told me was that she finally got to see how joyful life could have been. And she really wished that she could have stayed longer to enjoy that more. And so as far as I was concerned, however the money came out with the will, I was going to give what I would have gotten to my sister only for that very one reason, because she gave my mom that gift right at the very end. And what a wonderful gift to give her. So that's a really important thing to remember. There are two different ways you can live. You can live in sadness and anger and lack, or you can decide to expand yourself and open up to the possibility that life can be joyful and long at the same time. It does not have to be terrible and angry and full of anxiety and all these different negative things. It doesn't have to be that way. Sure, life hits you once in a while, but it's not about whether you get hit. It's about how well you recover. And that's what these videos are supposed to help with. And that's what I'm hoping that they help with. In fact, if you're suffering from anxiety, please definitely do us a favor and check out the Richest You video about how to handle anxiety with specific steps that you can use to help yourself feel better right away. Now, so when you're talking about losing a loved one and what happens to people in money, remember you have two choices. You can either be at cause or you can be at effect. And if you're at cause, then that means that you are deciding, I am going to respond to this situation this way. No matter what my siblings say, no matter what my mom's will says, I'm going to decide that it's going to be nice to see everybody. It's going to be nice to have this moment to remember my mom. And it doesn't matter what I get from the will. I'm just glad and I'm thankful that she gave me life. Or you could take the path where you decide you're going to be angry with your siblings, you're going to fight over money that's not there, and you're going to spend the rest of your life bitching and moaning about how your mom didn't do the right thing. Or, like I said, you could actually decide to do the right thing yourself. You could be, now at effect, I should clarify, when you're at effect, what that means is that anything that comes along, it controls how you feel and how you react to the things that come along in life. So when someone dies, or you lose money, or you lose your job, or you get sick, that's all, you're a victim. It's not my fault. Life is just hard for me. When you're at cause, it's no, I take responsibility, and yes, I may be sick, but I'm going to get healthy. Or I may have lost my job, but you know what? I'm going to learn a new skill, and I'm going to find a new job and make even more money. Nothing's going to stop me. That's the difference between cause and effect. So I hope that you found this really helpful. And remember, make sure you check out our video on anxiety. So the last thing I would say for this topic, basically when what happens to family when someone dies, is to make sure that you control your own circumstance. Make sure that you put down on paper what your intentions are for your family, and consider the idea of a laser fund, and consider the idea of an equal opportunity clause or something like that that prompts the family members to participate in their own growth, to learn the lessons, but have some resource there to help them along the way. Instead of spoon feeding them every time they ask for, help them to grow by getting them better and better and stronger at creating their own success. Because when they do it themselves, they feel way better about it anyhow. It's far better to find that success on your own, maybe with a little help from your family, than it is to have your family just hand it to you and then you just are like, oh, well, you take it for granted. Yeah, they helped me. I'm basically useless otherwise. So keep that in mind. Make sure you get it down on paper and let people know that you have put your intentions down on paper. And think about what the effect of what you've written down will be on your family members. Will it cause them to fight, or will it cause them to come together and celebrate your life and celebrate the gift of the time that you had with them? And so make sure you're always thinking about what the effect is going to be, what cause you're going to create when you put your intentions down on paper now and in the future. Okay, everybody, so thank you very much for tuning in, especially for such a sensitive subject. I hope that you found value in this, and I hope you take it seriously, at least to consider the idea of putting your intentions down and thinking carefully about how that would cause your family members to feel. And even better, maybe arm yourself with the tools from our anxiety video to be able to handle better when you lose someone in your family too. If you liked the video, please definitely give us a thumbs up. And of course, as always, please subscribe to our channel. We'd love to share with you every time we put up a new video. Until next time, guys.